Hello and welcome back to the Linux Panic YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to be going over why there is no such thing as a beginner Linux. But first, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. So you're probably wondering, what do you mean there's no such thing as a beginner Linux? Have you not heard of Ubuntu? Yes. Yes, I have. And this is why I'm going to go over everything and prove you wrong, because there is no such thing as a beginner Linux. First off, yes, this is the meme. There will be no year of the Linux desktop. The year of the Linux desktop will never come because the interest in Linux is on a linear scale, where the interest in Linux will just reach a point in time where no one can believe that that life used to exist without Linux as even more ubiquitous as it is than it is today, because at least 75% of the internet is run on Linux. So you tell me, is Linux not already ubiquitous? Has the year Linux desktop not already happened? Anyway, let's move on from this and move on to the core part of the video. So you're probably wondering, Nick, what do you mean there's no such thing as there's no such thing as beginner desktop? Let me show you. Let's just leave here and go into the various websites I'm going to go to. So I have just done a quick best distro Linux for beginners. That's how it would be searched. So let's just open up another one and prove you wrong, because apparently the people who wrote these articles didn't run these variations of Linux. So let's start with number one. It's FOSS, well, FOSS bytes even. Apparently its FOSS is one of these two. So its FOSS bytes reckons that there is 10 best distros for the beginners. Wrong. The best distro for Linux beginners is the one that you choose. There is no set thing. There is no, oh, this is the ultimate hard and fast. No. The best Linux distro for beginners is the one that the beginner chooses. In my case, I went with Manjaro. That was my beginning. There is no set hard and fast. Now, here's the running theme. FOSSbytes recommends Linux Mint as your starter. ZDNet recommends Mint again. Its FOSS recommends Ubuntu. And what is my IP address? That's a .com. It's a very strange website name, but there we go. Also recommends Linux Mint. Now, unless the writers of these articles are forgetting, Linux Mint is based off Ubuntu. It is not its own thing. It is based off Ubuntu and has a Windows-like interface. That's why people like it so much. But let's hear out the case for Mint from these websites, shall we? FOSSbytes says it's near perfect desktop experience. Cinnamon Desktop, which is not Mint, it is a variation of Mint again, is feature rich yet lightweight. You can't have both at the same time. Full access to Ubuntu software repositories because it is built on Ubuntu, and great and responsive community. From what I can tell, it is alright. It does the job. And from when I was watching the Linus Tech Tips Linux Challenge, Luke had absolutely no issue with it. Looking at ZDNet, Linux Mint, their argument for is it's free. Yes, because it's Linux. It's meant to be free. Windows-like interface. Yep, but that can also be changed with variations such as Mate or Xface. Open source code, yes, because that's the requirement of it being Linux. It has to be open source, because if it's not, then it ain't correct. No data collection. That's not necessarily true. The creators of Mint could have some data collection going on in the background. You don't know how they have had it built. Cons, may not be compatible with all programs or games. You mean it may not be the programs and games may not be compatible with Mint. They are forgetting Wine exists, and no proprietary drivers are included. No, because you have to go get them separately, but you can get them in downloads or updates or in your settings. Set that up easy. Its FOSS says, hey, look, it's easy. Mint is here. It says familiar user interface with Windows. Yeah, Windows 10 or older. Performs great with older hardware. Most Linux variations perform great in older hardware. And some improvements over Ubuntu. Of course it would be, because it's a variation of Ubuntu, so they can design it how they want. And then what's my IP address says, hey, look, it's good because it's lighter than Ubuntu. That's all it says. Windows usually wants a seamless first experience with Linux. No first experience with Linux is seamless, because you have to learn it. Unless it works like Windows, exactly like Windows, it isn't Linux. So again, no such thing. It's going to be a bit of a ranty video, you can tell. Let's look at, again, FOSSbytes. FOSSbytes recommends Ubuntu because it's tons of free software in the software center, just like a lot of other variations Linux include. There's a vast community. That is also correct. Lots of flavors to suit your needs. What do they mean by flavor? They don't describe that. Yes, there's flavors. Ubuntu, Kylin, Edbuntu, Lubuntu, Xbuntu, Ubuntu Mate, Studio, Budgie, and Kubuntu. They don't describe what the flavors are. So if you were to just say to a completely novice Linux user, hey, look, have a look at this flavor of this distribution, they're going to go, what the fuck did you just say to me? And then go straight back to Windows. No one knows unless you tell them what a flavor is. Let's look at ZDNet. So you can already see Ubuntu's third on their list. They don't really care about it too much. Great for personal computers as well as companies. See, here is where the people of ZDNet have apparently not looked at the operating system and not actually tried to use it. Because first off, that's wrong. And they're saying, oh, look, this is the best for beginners. And it was posted yesterday. It's like, oh, look, it's best for beginners. And first off, it's immediately just spouting crap, because it is not pay as you go. It is free straight out the gate until you want to start paying for it. Unless you want to start paying for it, that is. So this encryption for cloud storage isn't true. This built-in recovery is correct. Remote disk repair, I can't speak for that because I've not tried to use it. But they also offer enterprise stuff for, well, Ubuntu, Canonical, the developers of Ubuntu, offer a enterprise variation, so you can use it on enterprise systems. Pay as you go, that's lies. Cons, it's not free. It is free. It is free. So they're speaking out their ass. And when it comes to its FOSS, they recommend Ubuntu because apparently it's easy to use, a unique user experience. Nope, because this is the same sort of desktop you would get on Fedora. Huge collection of software applications available through the Software Center. Yeah, and essential tools pre-installed. Not necessarily you could choose from the start to have them not installed. So no, they don't come pre-installed. And what do they mean by essential tools? It's like the writers for these websites have not actually read their own articles before using this operating system and then try to read their articles after they've used them. So they're speaking out of their ass. Again, for verylongname.com, they apparently don't recommend Ubuntu. Good. At least there's some other website that aren't copying everyone else. This is for 2021, but still, they're not copying everyone else. We'll go back to the beginning. Pop! OS. It is seen as a gaming-orientated version. All it is just another variation of Ubuntu made to look different. That's all it is. So, people saying, oh, look, it's designed for gaming and all this and that. It's just another version of Ubuntu. If I can set up gaming quite easily on an Ubuntu variation of Linux using Wine or Lutris. And boom, straight into the gates. Anything that runs on Steam will work instantly without any bother. So they're just dancing around the fact, oh, it's working, it's made for gamers. They're speaking out of their ass. Tell me what it does different than every other variation of Linux. Yes, comes pre-installed with NVIDIA drivers. That's the only thing that's different. and its own desktop environment. That's all it is. Flatpak support, from what I can tell, people aren't exactly thrilled about the idea of Snap and Flatpak as is. So that's not exactly a guaranteed likable thing. Stable Ubuntu base, because of course it's stable. It runs on Ubuntu. A great number of nifty features like Windows tiling. Okay, what are the features? You just list one thing, and most Linux variations include some sort of window tiling anyway, because it's not based off the Linux, it's based off the desktop environment that does the tiling. So again, speaking out of their ass. Separate ISOs for laptops and PCs from NVIDIA. That's the only thing they point out that does different. That's all. Does ZDNet includes anything like, oh, I don't know, Pop OS? No, they don't. So they don't believe it exists, which is fine. What about its FOSS? There's Elementary, there's Linux Lite, there's Manjaro, there's Pop OS, right down the list, because apparently they don't recommend it. Improved user experience when compared to Ubuntu. It's on top of Ubuntu. So, what do they mean? It could be better. It is better. Extra out-of-box features like auto window tiling. Okay, there we go. Something different. Someone's mentioned something different. And it provides us polished and snappy experience. Yeah, because it's got a different desktop environment. So, of course, it's going to look different and perform better if they've optimized for it. Which, most likely, the System 76 have done. You get a GNOME desktop environment, which is the default with Ubuntu. And any Ubuntu variation, because Ubuntu uses GNOME. Wow, so different. So quirky and different. Like, no. They are not. These websites aren't actually looking at anything different. They're just going, yeah, here's one thing different than what you're expecting. That is it. Now let's look at logname.com. Pop OS is a great beginner's distro for gaming, and hybrid graphics that work well on distro. Work well on this distro, and like hybrid. Now, are they thinking, oh look, it works straight out of the box with anything that is on AMD? Yeah, the reason why it works straight out of the box with any AMD graphics card is because AMD has written their drivers for their graphics cards into the Linux source code. So of course it's going to work better. And a variation that's designed specifically for NVIDIA hardware. So basically it's got the proprietary driver already installed. That's it. So they're not saying, oh, it's... yeah. The Longname.com is saying, oh, look, it's not lightweight compared to the other three. So what is it? And the only thing that they've actually shown different is it encrypts your installation by default. And it comes with their software store, that's PopShop. That's the only thing that they've pointed out as different. They're not really dived in. It's like, oh, there's just a couple of things that are different, that's all. It's like, they're not actually checking. So, I could go on for ages and ages and ages here. I've already gone on for 13 minutes already, believe it or not. But these websites are talking out of their arse when it comes to Linux distros. It's like, no, there is no beginner Linux. There is no beginner Linux. Like, there is none. It is the one you choose. Every website will tell you different but similar at the same time, because they all like to copy each other, as we saw. Because they want as much traffic as possible, so they're going to do all the key buzzwords, and that's it. But basically, there will be no Linux desktop that is ideal, or Linux distro that is ideal for beginners. It is a lie. It is a fallacy. There will be no geared Linux desktop. That is a lie and a fallacy. Interest in Linux is a linear scale. It'll reach a point in time where we cannot believe that we existed, that we lived without using Linux on a daily basis. That is years off into the future. But right now, there is no beginner Linux. I stand by what I say. You cannot prove me wrong. Anyway, that has been your second video of today. You're lucky, you're getting 2 videos in one day. Anyway, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I've been Nick. I'd like to thank my patrons Raining, Hazmat and Ashley for being subscribed over at Patreon. This has been a very ranty video. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I have been Nick. You've been amazing, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.